New York City Comptroller Brad Lander was arrested by ICE agents a week before the New York City mayoral primary. You don't say. This is Nuance, and I am Mike Scala, joined as always by Jay Carter. Of course, I'm an attorney and an MC, and he's a fellow hip hop artist, Timid, as well as the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's up, Jay? This is the season for politicians to get arrested, I guess.
Uh, yeah, right. It's kind of crazy. And definitely want to hear what people think about what's happening because this, to me, seems like an unprecedented thing, right? This one, Lander, what was it, Ross Baraka, a few weeks back, got arrested. There was another staffer that we talked about a week or two ago, and it's related to ICE, and it seems
Adler's
like
office. Yeah, Congressman Adler's office.
right. And it seems like, these things are just out of control. Wasn't there something in California too?
An
Um,
arrest? I don't know.
I think there was something in California too. But
Wasn't Gavin Newsom saying "get tough on me, bro" or something like that?
I thought there was something else. There was some kind of politician or elected official arrested in California. Um,
Oh yes, Alex Padilla, the senator.
right.
Yes, they gave him a hard time, and then you saw Gavin Newsom, the governor, saying, "Yeah, like you do that to me, tough guy," or something like yeah, that soundbite.
Yeah, and then there was also a union leader that was arrested too. Um, so it's this is crazy. And so
So
we
the Ras Baraka one, did you see what was going on with that? Because I saw news articles when it was happening, but that was kind of leading up to the gubernatorial primary in New Jersey, and I took it, and admittedly without looking too deeply into it, but when I saw the headlines and everything, I took it as maybe an act of civil disobedience or a publicity stunt of sorts to try to bolster his name and his cred prior to the election, because I had seen before that he was trailing Mikey Sherrill, who ended up winning the primary, but making some ground, or there was potentially some ground for him to make up. So I thought maybe, okay, this is his shot now, right? He's going to generate these headlines and maybe rise in the polls even more. But we didn't see that happen with him. He actually seemed to lose ground, I believe. Certainly didn't make a big dent in the end result there. So if that was his intention, I don't think it worked for him.
yeah, I mean I can you know I can understand skepticism in that regard. And surely some might use the optics as a tactic. You have a lot of people speculate about, that Trump getting shot in the ear was done in that same regard type of thing. Um, but with repeated arrests across the country, to me it makes it less likely that it's a thing like that.
Well, with the Baraka thing, like I said, I didn't look into it too deeply, so I didn't know if it was an act of civil disobedience, because oftentimes you'll see elected officials or candidates for office purposely getting arrested, and they're not making that a secret either, right? They're saying, "I'm going to go here for the purpose of being arrested,"
Sure,
right?
sure.
Or like, for
Getting
example,
get
they'll purposely stand. Right, they'll be in a protest and they'll purposely disobey police orders because they want the visual of them in the handcuffs, right, looking like the tough guy. So I didn't know if that's what he was doing in New Jersey or not. Like I said, I didn't read into it too deeply. With this, the
well,
Brad Lander,
The John Lewis quote, get in good trouble,
right, right. So
So
yeah, so oftentimes it isn't that they're trying to make even a secret of it, right? It's not that they're trying to pretend like it wasn't intentional. Oftentimes it is very obviously deliberate, but that's the point. They're seeking that, right? Either it's publicity for their election or publicity for the cause that they're seeking to
right.
advocate for.
Right. And
So
that kind of publicity for the cause can be, I mean, listen, it's the optics of they travel very far, right? We've seen
yeah.
it in all movements, when people get arrested for the cause. And I don't know Ras Baraka like that and his politics, but I think standing up in faces of injustice like that to the point where you're willing to get arrested is something that is commendable and probably needed in certain times.
So here we go. That's a good segue into the Brad Lander situation, because look, I am not a conspiracy theorist on this to the point where I'm going to claim that there was some kind of collusion between Brad Lander and these agents, right? Or I'm not going to say that these were paid actors from the Lander campaign or something like that, right? I do
Mhm.
believe what happened happened. With that said, I'm a New Yorker. I like to call out what appears to be nonsense when I see it, right? Or an angle when I see it. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least, given the timing of this, if he went out purposely trying to instigate an incident like this for the purpose of generating publicity, given that early voting just began a couple of days ago and we're a week off from the primary. I don't think that's a coincidence, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, the question is, I mean, yeah, I get that, but the question is that, it's like I said, we've seen this happen before. It seems to be happening with ICE agents, particularly. So it could be an overreach on their part, which it looks like they're doing a lot of overreaching.
Right,
And it
right.
could
Why are
also
ICE
be
agents? Let's just get this out there. Why are ICE agents arresting U.S. citizens? That is inappropriate.
period,
Right,
period.
right.
Right. That's a major issue there. Now, knowing that these ICE agents are going a little too far, not a little, they're going a lot too far. There is that opportunity for someone, if they want to get that publicity, to try to stand in
Yeah,
the vicinity to try to increase that chance of, getting whatever they're dishing out on
yeah,
camera.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
that's
did you
possible.
see Brad Lander's Instagram account post the video, right? Post a video of the whole incident with the caption, "Hey, this is Brad's wife," and another updates from the wife. Brad is still being detained by ICE. Like it's a whole narrative. You know what I mean? Like it's. I'm thinking
But I
like,
mean,
come on, son, come on, son. You know what I mean? And if you look at the video, I'm sorry, I can't help it. We talked about how his commercial sought to portray him as a tough guy, right? And it was a total fail for me. I think most viewers watching it, like, this is not who you are. If you're the nerdy, professorial, kind of soft dude, double down on that, play that role. But to be in the commercial, crushing things with a monster truck and jumping out with the hard hat and folding his arms on Brad Lander without even opening his mouth, because as soon as you open your mouth, that goes out the window, right? It was kind of laughable. A lot of people had that reaction. Come on, son, that ain't you, right? You watch this video of him being detained, dragged through the halls, whatever, and he's got a face on like, I just won the election for myself, or I'm doing something good here. You know what I mean? Like he's got he's proud of himself as he's going through this, but he looks so goofy at the same time. It's like, dude, this ain't you. Like you're trying to be a tough guy on camera, and you look goofy. You look stupid. You look dumb. Like it's not on brand for him. And I think that's a problem.
maybe it is him. It just maybe
Look
he
at the
just
face. I mean, I can get a screenshot of it. I think I sent you a message like this goofball before. It's just because you could tell he's trying to like do something here. And again, we don't know how this was all set up. I'm not saying that this was all some conspiracy or it was fake. I do, like I said, I've got my doubts that this just happened to be coincidental a week before the election. You know, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he went and played tough with them to try to create a moment like this, right?
but he
I don't
didn't
know.
though. Did you watch the video? Like it's not like he
I
stood
did.
there and got in
No,
anyone's
but he
face.
no, but apparently he was escorting someone out of court who an immigrant who lost their case. They had their case dismissed in court, and that's what ICE has been doing, right? They've been trying to take people right from the court, and has been pushed
Right.
against that, and rightfully so. So Brad Lander evidently was escorting this immigrant whose case was just dismissed from the court. So apparently he stood in the ICE's way when they were trying to detain the immigrant. That's how this seems. So he put himself between. From what we're seeing, it looks like he put himself between the agents and the immigrant.
Right. Well, it looked from the video that I saw, it looked like they were standing in the hallway and he locked arms with this guy
Yeah.
and they were just standing there and the ICE agents came and I guess was trying to force them apart and then went ahead and took him as well. But from the stories, it's like he was asking them, for their paperwork that they need to be able to do this. Like, where's your warrant?
Where's your warrant? Right. The guy said,
And
"Here it is," but you couldn't really see it. It was a piece of paper.
right.
You know, and look,
And
multiple things can be true, right? So
Yeah, sure, sure.
on the one hand, we can say, yeah, this looks like a contrived publicity stunt ahead of the election. It's like when Cameron had his Lamborghini jacked and a news reporter came, not saying that that wasn't legitimate either. But when then they put the microphone in his face and they said, "Hey Cam, what happened?" He was like, "I got shot. My album drops next week or whatever." Right? Same kind of deal. Brad Lander was arrested. His album drops. Except it's not his album. It's the ballot. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Same kind of deal. I'm not saying that it wasn't legitimate. And when I say both things can be true, that can be true, that the timing of it wasn't coincidental. What also can be true is that it was a form of civil disobedience that has
Right.
merit, right? Timing of the election or not, that still can also have merit on its own.
Absolutely. And to be honest, and to be honest, I think leaders that are willing to go that mile is des are desirable to me. Um,
It's
again,
Tuesday, June
a
6th,
good
17th, though, bro. It's Tuesday, June
um,
17th. It's Tuesday, June 17th. The election happens to be next Tuesday, June 24th. Early voting happened to have started this week. That doesn't
I
make it.
get that.
Come on, son. Come on. He could have done this any time. Why is he choosing today to do it?
Again, we know how, elections move and they look for optics and this and that. And so, the cameras are going to be there and, that could be a part of it as well. He could
Part of
have
it.
reached the point. He could have reached the point where he's like, you know what, this is just too much. I need to do something, and stepped out in there with no regard for the election. This is all possible as well. And I think,
Yeah,
listen, I don't think
that's a
I don't
stretch.
think it's, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them to produce their
No,
warrant. And if they don't produce the warrant, so from what it looks like, and from the reporting, he asked them about the warrant. They didn't conclusively show a warrant, so he stood there. He locked arms with the guy and stood there and said, basically, "I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant."
right.
And they did. They still did not produce any of it, and they're sitting there masked up. First of all, why
Well,
do they have
so,
masks
so there
on?
was a guy who was apparently with the officers who held up a piece of paper. He kept saying, "Here it is, here it is." But from what the camera showed, you couldn't really see what was on that paper.
Right. So, right. So there's even if it was some sort of a stunt, what took place is still something that's out of line and
Well, yeah,
something
it's
that's
been out of line, this
yeah.
stunt happening or not, right? It's been happening. And so, yeah, like I said, you could argue that whether it's for an electoral advantage or angle, he's still calling attention, more attention to something that's happening. And now you're seeing more of these stories. But dude,
Right.
this is what I'm saying.
But you can't judge by that because someone screenshot, an editor that looked at that and said, we're going to take this part of the
Look at
footage.
the video. He looks goofy in every frame. He looks goofy because he's trying to portray himself as a tough guy who's standing up, and he just looks like a goofball. He looks like the schmuck. Remember the Scott Stringer commercial calling Trump a schmuck? When I see that video, I'm like, this schmuck, like, you know what I mean? And that's me
I don't
agreeing
know.
with the civil disobedience, if you want to call it that, right? Like the action calling attention to the injustice. I agree with all that. I just think Brad Lander, like to be the dude to do it. I mean, I guess good for him in a sense, but he looks so goofy trying to do that. I'm sorry. He just looks
Is he supposed to
inherently
look
like a
cool?
goofball. He looks like
Is
a
he supposed
goofball.
to look is he supposed to look cool getting
Oh, he's
arrested? Like,
trying to look tough though. He's trying to act like a tough guy, like standing in their face. And the face is that he just looks stupid and he sounds stupid. I'm sorry, he just does.
from the video that I saw, it didn't look like he was putting on a tough guy act. It was more, it was, he's like, where's the report? Where is
Right.
the warrant? Where is it? Like, it wasn't like he stood out with his chest poked out and a cape
Kind of
flowing
did.
in the wind,
Kind
you
of did.
know,
Kind of
trying
was
to like
trying to do
aura
that.
farm.
Kind of was trying to do that. His face was like he was so proud of himself. Like yeah, like I'm sticking it to these guys, and he looks like a goofball the whole time. It's just not
I
on
don't,
brand for him. It's not on brand for him. You know what I mean? Like he should be the guy in the classroom pointing out to his students what was going on, not the guy being dragged to the hall with that tough guy look, the macho look, when he's just not a macho guy.
listen, hey, it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to stay in the classroom. I mean, at some point, people have, feel like they need to stand up, and maybe that was,
Oh come on.
what he needed to do. And I think we need more of it. We need more of
Now,
these types of
okay,
victims.
but again, it's June 17th. The election is June 24th. It's a Tuesday. It's 1 week from today. You think this is a coincidence? I mean, come on, like let's be realistic here. This is a
I think there's
this is a political stunt. I think that's
I
the
think there's
most likely.
possibilities.
I think that's the most likely. I would give that, you know, 90+% chance. If we're saying, did he do this with the election in mind, at least a little bit? Come on. He's a candidate for mayor. What is he in third place right now? You think that wasn't even in his head? Of course it was.
Right. Sure.
Come on.
Absolutely. Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. I would not disagree with that there was at least some kind of thought or put into it that listen, if we're here, there are going to be cameras. We're going to get some press off of this. I don't disagree with
And
that
then got
possibility.
the tweets and posts from his wife, like it's a hostage situation. Keep up with the
Well, it
saga.
was a hostage situation.
Brad is still detained. Brad is, you getting all these people holding hands now, saying this is. I mean, again,
But listen, let's okay, right.
and I guess kudos in a sense. It's a good publicity stunt in a way. It's a publicity stunt, and I think to a cynical, brash New Yorker, we're looking at it like, "Come on, son, that ain't you," and we see through it. I think
Well,
that's
listen,
part of what it is. It's like as New Yorkers, we don't like being taken for a ride, right? And we kind of feel like looking at this, ooh, like he's trying to make it seem organic and it's contrived. That's the
well,
thing. Like maybe if someone else did,
dude,
right? If someone who wasn't a candidate for mayor, struggling in the polls right now, did that, it would have been received differently.
well, okay, what if it was Mamdani? How would you receive that?
Probably in a similar way, with this exception. Mamdani would probably look a little bit better than Lander doing it now because Mamdani is doing better in the polls than Lander. Lander is like that third place guy struggling to gain traction. He wants to be up there with Cuomo and Mamdani, so he's looking a little bit more desperate when he does something like this. With
But
Mamdani,
isn't
yeah,
Do you think this is more on brand for Mamdani though? Because he's that outsider guy, that
maybe.
against the system kind of guy, a little
But
bit.
honestly, my thought as a cynical New Yorker, and again, this is just me being cynical, right? But looking at this all, I may not be wrong about this because Mamdani actually appeared at a press conference. I believe so did Adrian Adams, where they're all kind of holding hands and saying, free Brad, right? Like free Tony Yayo. So Brad's got the street cred now, I guess. But
Eminem's gonna be wearing a
right,
free
at the
Brad
Grammys,
shirt at the Grammys,
Brad
right?
at the Grammys. So my thinking was because Brad probably knows he's not really going to win, but he's trying to generate some buzz here. Maybe he's doing this primarily to stop Cuomo. So maybe he's actually doing it in a weird way to help Mamdani, but Mamdani doesn't have to get his hands dirty, right? He's not the one getting arrested. So he can just show up at a press conference and say, that was wrong. Brad, like I said, he's kind of in a more desperate position, but he has less to lose. And so he can kind of soil himself with this because he wasn't going to win anyway, most likely, right? But this is creating a lot of buzz, and it could actually hurt Cuomo indirectly, right? By maybe bolstering these guys who are all saying how wrong this is. Though to be fair,
Right.
I don't know if he has issued a statement yet, but he probably is going to be on board saying this is wrong too, because it was wrong. Let's stipulate that it was wrong for ICE to do what they did, regardless of the publicity
Right.
stuff effect of it. So there's that, right? So, but I do think that this is creating more energy, perhaps, on the progressive side of things in this primary. So I actually do think if anyone is going to be hurt by this, it is Cuomo.
Okay. Okay. I think that we should also make sure we, you know, in the speculation about his motivations or whatnot, we should also make clear, like you just said, like this was wrong, period.
It is wrong.
Um,
It's ongoing.
it's ongoing. This is wrong, period. And what I don't like about it, one of the things I don't like about it, there are many things, but one of the things I don't like about it is in the posts from ICE. They were saying that, Brad Lander was arrested for assaulting law enforcement and impeding a federal officer. We watched the video. He didn't assault anyone.
Not
And
on the video, but we don't know what
not on
happened.
the video.
We
Not
don't
on
know,
the video.
we don't know what happened
Okay,
prior to that. Right.
right. But at least from the evidence that we can see, from the video that we can see, there was no assault. And
Well,
this
hold
is
on a second. Though. Yes, yes. However, the arrest was clearly in progress at the time the video started, right? So if they're saying
right.
that's why he was arrested, we didn't see what happened leading up to that point. The video
Sure.
started while the arrest was already happening.
Sure. The problem is to me and for people who have been at the ire of law enforcement, this type of excuse is par for the course.
Mhm.
Oh, assaulting law enforcement, we feared for our life, and so that was their excuse to take it to a level that it shouldn't have been taken to. So if we're
Is
looking at the
that
video,
is that
they're
even
saying
appropriate for ICE to be doing that? ICE is supposed to be
no, no.
right immigrants, not
That's
U.S.
my point.
citizens. That would be, if anything, that would be a different law enforcement body that would get involved in that, right?
Right, absolutely. But that's my point. The same playbook is that, oh, they were attacking us, or oh, they're doing this. This is why we're going over the line, or we're doing what we're not supposed to be doing. This is the justification that they're using, and that's something that we see that law enforcement use across the board. Like they even posted, ICE posted, our heroic ICE law enforcement officers face a 413% increase in assaults against them, right? Is it wrong for that politicians seeking higher office undermine law enforcement safety to get a viral moment? And then they go in a threat. No one is above the law. If you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will face consequences. This is not what we want to hear from our law enforcement. Should not be an us versus them type of
Right.
situation.
Right.
This is gang mafia mentality and talk. And then 413% increase in assaults against ICE agents? Like, come on, what are you doing here? This is a big problem. This is a big issue.
Governor Kathy Hochul actually made a Facebook post earlier where she posted the article and she wrote, "This is bullshit."
And it is. I'm with that. I'm with that. And my question is, as the front runner, what has Cuomo stated, if anything?
Let's take a look. I'm sure there's something on his page by now, right? There's got to be.
Because at this moment, if you're a candidate in there, you have to make a statement on
But
this.
isn't that, see, yeah, I know where you're coming from with that, but don't you also feel like that's a little manipulative? If you're a
Sure.
candidate, you're like, oh, they got me. Like they're forcing me to make a statement in defense of my opponent now.
Sure, but it's not just I think there's a bigger picture. This is in defense of, rights. Like you said, ICE agents should not be arresting American citizens, regardless if he is the comptroller or a mayoral candidate. An elected official, you know, they shouldn't get special protections, but if they're even willing to go there,
Well, it's
yeah, we
funny.
need to be
Yeah, because I was just thinking maybe you can do this in a way that isn't like free Brad, right? But it's just talking about the
a
underlying issue.
violation.
Well, not even talking about him in particular, but just talking about what's going on with ICE. Because I just looked
Sure.
at Cuomo's page, and before I even clicked on the page, I was just searching it in Facebook. There's actually a post that first comes up from 4 days ago, before this happened, right? And he says, "When I am mayor, ICE agents will not spread fear in our city, tearing families apart and separating children from their parents. I will stand up for each and every New Yorker. I always have and always will." So he's already on message with that. Let's see
Yeah,
if
but
there's anything
that
specifically about this
sounds
incident.
that sounds like it's pandering though. Like how? How are you going to do that? How are you going to stop ICE agents from doing that? You're
Well,
obviously not
by
hitting the street.
not cooperating, there's a big battle that's going on between the state and even the city against the federal government, right? And so you're saying you're not going to cooperate with them and let them do what they want to do when it's inappropriate. Of course, we're not saying you always stop federal law enforcement or immigration officials, but when it's inappropriate.
No, but I'm saying he's saying that they will not put fear in our street. Like
Right.
you can't. What are you going to do to stop it though? You're not getting in the streets. You're obviously not willing to stand in between. Do what Brad Lander just did.
But
You're
dude,
not willing to do
come on!
anything like that.
Don't you think that that's performative? I would rather have a mayor who's strong on the policy than who's out
But
there
if
doing
you can't do
publicity stuff.
anything,
Chaining yourself to a light pole. Oh yeah, that's our guy. Come on! It's kind of an insult to our intelligence on some level too.
but that those tactics have worked. I mean, this is how we got through the civil rights movement. Some of those types of tactics.
As
So, I
an
mean,
activist, but there's a difference between being an activist and being a government official.
no, there were all kinds of. Listen, John Lewis got arrested as an elected official before many times,
Those are
and this is
different skill
not.
sets. Those are still different skill sets. You want someone who can do the job of being an executive, I think, first and foremost in that role. You want to have your activists as well, but just doing that and being weak on the policy,
Well,
Because
no, of course that you can walk and chew gum at the same time if you're
right,
willing to do that. My question is, with that statement from Cuomo, is how? We can say we're going to make sure that ICE doesn't terrorize our streets, but
right.
how? How are you going to stop them? What is your plan to
Well,
do that?
what we saw on his website, a very extensive plan. And again, Brad Lander getting himself arrested isn't a plan. That's a publicity stunt. So that doesn't, that
Oh,
doesn't.
it could be. It could be, it could also be that's the extent of his power is to stand in the way. Plus, again, the optics are important.
The
They're, like you
controller's
said,
effectless role in the first place.
there are both things can be true at the same time. You
So
know,
here we go. Let's see. I see something an hour ago from Cuomo. Families now live in fear of being torn apart. Businesses,
absolutely.
our immigrant communities are at a standstill, and people are afraid to leave their homes, take their kids to school, or go to work. This is not who we are. As mayor, I will stand up to President Trump. ICE cannot come to New York City and rip families apart at will.
I want to know
He's got a
how.
video here, and I'm talking on the podcast, and so I'm not playing the video, but he also has
Right.
his post accompanied with a video where he's actually, it looks like he's doing a press conference on this issue. He's talking
Yeah,
about
but
security guards, and so he's going in on this.
and you know what? And I'm all for that. I just want to know how. I want to know how you're going to accomplish that because we've seen that this administration and ICE, they don't really care about what it is
Well,
that the tough talk. You gotta,
realize that Eric Adams as mayor has really not done anything to stand in the way.
yeah, that is another good point. Like, if
So
anyone
that's
should be
why,
speaking out,
but that's why you're seeing so much of this now in New York. And so I don't think you need a genius blueprint to reverse the course of Eric Adams here, right? You're basically saying if I'm mayor, I'm not going to do what he's doing, right? I'm not going to cooperate with the city officials. For example, the NYPD will not be directed to cooperate with these federal officers when they're acting inappropriately.
right? I think that's a good point.
Where
If
they can't come
anyone,
into our schools, right? That was the whole sanctuary city thing that we saw with de Blasio as well, right? Not allowing ICE agents to come into the schools and pull kids out, rip them apart from their families.
right? If anyone should be speaking out, it should be the mayor of New York right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
If anyone should be on TV and in front of it saying denouncing what's going down, it should be Eric Adams.
But I
Um,
still think you should be able to do this without wearing a Free Brad t-shirt, right? They
sure.
force every elected official and every candidate to be like, we love Brad right now because
No, they don't. Here's the thing.
he's a candidate for office. They could talk about the underlying issue. They can talk about ICE, the immigration, what's been going on and what continues to go on.
Absolutely.
Eric
Absolutely.
Adams, Andrew Cuomo, no one should have to do a press conference talk about how much they love Brad because
They don't have to.
right, that strikes me as very manipulative.
They don't have to. They could come out and talk about denouncing ICE arresting Americans. They don't
Right,
even have to mention his name because
right,
we know it's there, but
right.
they can talk about like the actual,
Yeah,
like you said, the underlying issue.
yeah,
ICE agents arresting Americans, ICE agents intimidating people going to and from court,
yeah.
right? ICE agents wearing masks and not identifying themselves, not presenting the warrants that they're supposed to present when they show up, right?
You think he's
These
the
are
best
all
messenger
violations.
for this? And this is why I get back to the fact that the timing of the election, the fact that he did it today, exactly 1 week before the election, right? While early voting has just begun, polls may even be closed next Tuesday. Do you think he's the wrong messenger for it? On the one hand, maybe he's good in the
Who?
sense that he can generate a lot of publicity. Lander, maybe it's good that he can
Uh-huh.
generate the publicity given his stature, but a lot of people are now looking at it like a cynical PR move, and maybe he is not the right messenger given the fact that he is running in this election in third place right now, right? Trying to gain some more traction.
Yeah, I think, the messenger can, if it's the right cause, the messenger can be anyone. I don't have an issue with that. I think I think that only applies to whether it's going to help his campaign or not help his campaign.
Well,
As far
no,
as
I don't think
cause is
so.
concerned.
I disagree with that opinion though, because I'm seeing people react to this, right? I'm seeing people on my timeline, local people here, in these
Right,
neighborhoods, and they are not engaging with the underlying issue. They're not
right,
talking about what's going on with ICE and the federal government and immigration. What they're
right.
talking about is Brad Lander is a phony and an opportunist for making such a cheap publicity stunt. And so if it was someone else who wasn't running for mayor next week, right? That angle wouldn't be there.
But if it was someone not running for mayor, would it even get publicity to highlight what's happening?
It could,
And
depending on who it is, right? That's why I said the fact that he's running for mayor does give him more of a platform, and so that's.
sure, sure.
But he's not the only person with a platform either. It could be someone else. Even, I mean, if it was another politician, I guess there was maybe still say it was a publicity stunt, but it wouldn't be as timely as this seems to be. You know what I mean? With 1 week to go.
Right. Now you said on your timeline you're seeing this kind of negative or cynical type of view.
Yeah.
And a lot of the articles that I looked at, the video on YouTube, the articles, the news articles, there are people that were taking the opposite approach. I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, Lander is now is now my number two. Like I was gonna vote for him. This guy is now showing me that this is right." And this the comments after comment.
I
Now, of
can't
course,
believe those are coming from New Yorkers. Are you sure those are from New Yorkers? Because New Yorkers tend to look at this like, come on, son, really? Really? You know what I mean? Like, we don't like being
there's a
taken for a
mix.
ride. We don't like feeling like we got to hustle. This looks like a cheap trick, like the 3 card Monte. You know what I mean? Like the stuff you see on the street. Like, dude, like you're trying to play us right now. That's how it feels.
I'm just saying what the comments were
My number two.
saying that I was
On your
reading.
fantasy ballot in Kansas. I mean, as a New
The
Yorker, right?
comments I was reading, I'm just
You also
saying.
have to consider the source too, right? Like, because people will take this on both sides or from any side,
Sure.
right? Because it's not just one versus the other. It's like it's a spectrum, right? Ideological spectrum. So they will
Right.
paint this and whatever happens, right? Through the lens that they see the world. And so if they're on that side of things and that's like a big, especially if it's a big issue for them already, right? Then
Right.
maybe that'll resonate with them more. Or if they were very anti-Cuomo, because I think we talked about this offline. There's a movement now with ranked choice voting to do like anyone but Cuomo, right? You got your 5 picks. So if you're kind of in that squad, then maybe you use something like this as fuel to be like, you see, let's make sure you get Brad in there because it's anyone but Cuomo. You know what I mean? So
Right.
what I'm saying is people have their agendas, and I think you have to read into like who's posting it and who they are in the first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then we know as far as commenting goes, supporters will probably step up and be the ones to post where detractors may or may well, no, that's not true. Detractors, the negative is usually the ones who post more. Um,
Right, but
so
it's
there was a comment. Let me ask you about this.
interesting now because the negatives do post more, but what is the negative? It's don't rank Cuomo, right? And so people will use all this, I think, as fodder for that in some weird way too.
Right. So here, let me give you a couple of comments here.
Yeah.
One said I was already going to rank him first, but this definitely sealed the deal. Direct resistance needs to happen at every level. Another person saying, where was it at? What? I would joke but about being wrong that this polling was so low that he couldn't get arrested, but his pattern of arresting elected Democrats is getting too big to ignore. What I like,
That's a bar. His polling was so low he couldn't get arrested.
I would joke about being wrong that his polling was so low that he couldn't get arrested, but this pattern of arresting elected Democrats is getting too big to ignore.
But you see what I mean? Both of those comments, whether positive or negative, view this through the lens of the mayoral primary next week.
Yeah, there was one here, and I guess it kind of takes us off topic a little bit, but one person said, "Wait, I thought Adams and Hochul said wearing masks to hide your identity is a threat to public safety. Safety. I'm sure they'll condemn these masked ICE vigilantes immediately." Um,
I'm still on your poll numbers are too low to get arrested. I'm going to say that, I think. No.
that's so messed up. That's so messed up. So anyway, I'd like to hear what people have to say
I'm
about
not going to say
this.
the name. Hold on a second. Wanted to put one of the comments I saw on my timeline before. Oh, okay. Straight to the point. It's a link to the article, and the commentary here is the things some people do for free TV time, SMH.
What? Who's the source on that? No, you don't have to say the
I
name,
don't say
but
the
what's
name.
their alignment? That's the thing.
I know he's a Democrat, but
That
not like
doesn't mean anything.
on the far left progressive side of things, like more of a, rational, moderate kind of guy.
Mm. Okay, okay. So, well, I'd like to hear what people have to th say about this, what they think in regards to Lander getting arrested, first of all, um, if they're cynical about the timing of this. I think we can agree that there was
What do
definitely
you know?
some talk, huh?
Brad's album drop next week. I'm telling you, that's what it is.
Listen, I think we can agree that there was some talk in the campaign about being there and being seen.
You think?
I don't think we can deny that.
Right.
Um, and probably, listen, we know how the talk goes. It's probably like, yo, look, you could possibly get arrested. Haha, that could be really good for views.
Right.
Um, but
I actually think, and we're speculating right now, but knowing what I know about how campaigns work and right and how people operate in politics, I think that there's a bigger chance they went into it saying you should try to get arrested.
listen, I would not disagree that that's a possibility. Um, with the plotting and the planning and the strategy and looking at
Yeah.
how optics play and how the conversation changes, even the idea of saying, you know what, if you do get arrested, then that changes the conversation to you, and then your
Right.
opponents have to speak about you, putting your
Right.
name out there more. Like
Right.
all of
Right.
this stuff people think about in
Sure.
campaigns.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that's not a possibility.
It's a strong possibility. It's a,
But I think I'm gonna take a little bit of a less cynical view and hope that there was some sort of real integrity behind being there and
so
trying to be in the middle of this
yeah.
issue here.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it through my lens as well, and it's not an ideological one. It's more like, come on, like it's well, that of a New Yorker, right? A cynical New Yorker at
Yeah,
times, and also the fact of the way Brad Lander just comes off to me personally, right? And we talked about this before, and so it
right,
kind of reminds me of focus groups sometimes when you'll see it on TV shows, right? Like, they're trying out a new show or series or movie or whatever, and they'll have a focus group of people watch the pilot or a scene from it, and they'll get feedback like, we really like the plot, we really like the script, we like, everything about it. We just didn't like the main character, like the actor playing that. We just didn't like it, and that's kind
right,
of how I'm reacting to it, right? Like, yeah, I like what they're talking about. He just doesn't come off as likable or genuine to me.
right. I get you. I get you. And you mentioned like the monster truck thing and this and
Yeah.
that. Some of it seemed more like an act. If you, you know what? If you look at you were just on his I don't know if you're on his Twitter. If you go to his Twitter profile and look at his profile picture,
Oh no, is it handcuffs?
it's not handcuffs.
Is it him with a shank?
I think he's had this
It's a him with
I
a
think he's
shank.
had this the whole time. I think he's had this the whole time, but just the way the photo is taken, it kind of gives that it kind of gives me some of the feeling of what you were talking about as far as this disingenuousness of
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, look at the profile pic on
I'm
there.
pulling it up right now.
Orange
You got
background.
some
It's more
smugness to him, and maybe it's partially because he's not a native New Yorker. I'm not saying you have to be, right? New York is a very diverse place. We welcome people from all over, but he doesn't have New York energy to me, right? He's running for mayor of New York. The guy comes from St. Louis, and he just doesn't present himself like a real New Yorker to me. Like, you want to be mayor of our city, act like a New Yorker a little bit. Maybe you can't help it. That he's trying to do that with the tough ads, and he just comes off as goofy.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of his profile picture on
I'm
Twitter.
trying to pull it up now. Is it smug or it just looks phony?
It does kind of look phony. It does kind of look phony. It looks like something you'd see on a movie poster. That
Oh,
post.
you're talking about the okay, because he's got two. He's got the office of the controller and the campaign. You're talking about the campaign one, right?
Right, no, the at Brad Lander
Yeah. Yeah.
um profile. And it's got a picture of him
There
with
it
an orange background and he's look yes, that one. That one looks very yeah, that one looks very fake.
is.
The pose, the looking off into the
So
distance,
these
that's
are
the
this is
superhero pose. That's
this
the
is what he's
superhero
making.
pose.
Yeah, but if you look at the video, he's got that same kind of expression on. Like, he's so proud of himself, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a tough guy. I'm Brad Lander," and he looked like a goofball. Like, I'm sorry, people might not want to hear that, but he's trying to present himself a certain way, and it
Right.
just doesn't match up. Like it seems contrived and phony.
I think that's not the photo. That's not it, Brad. That photo is not it. Whoever's advising him on that is, yeah, they're not doing a
I
good
don't
look
think
there.
I don't know if they can do better. You know what I mean?
That's the super.
That's
Okay.
that's Brad energy. That's who he is. That's
That's,
your number one
that's
guy.
Brad energy.
He
Is
was,
that gonna be what we start
yeah.
calling it from now on? That's Brad
Look, if
energy.
he's
He's
gonna
got
do it,
Brad.
I want him to lean into it now. I want, you know what? His next picture should be him with a shank, or you know what I mean? I don't know, at the commissary trading cigarettes or something. Like lean into it. Be prison Brad. You know what I mean? Like let's do it.
Prison Brad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Talk about
Wow.
always running the yard. I want to hear
All
that.
right.
Brad's running the yard right now, son. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, let's do it. If that's the guy he wants to be, yeah, I say go all out. Might as well.
All
We got
right. All
seven
right.
days to go, Brad. We got 7 days to go. Like, how far can we lean into this?
Well, we just did just speak a lot on him, so part of it, if it was a publicity type of stunt, if
It
it was
worked.
to get people talking, it works. So, all right. Well, we had a few other things that we wanted to get into as
Yeah. So
well.
you want to do a poll on this?
Um, what would you say? What kind of poll would you ask about
Ask if
this?
people thought it was a publicity stunt.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right. So the poll question of the week is: do you think that 2025 Democratic mayoral candidate Brad Lander getting arrested by ICE agents exactly 1 week prior to the Democratic primary was a publicity stunt?
Now, can you
You know
do
what's
that
funny?
again? Because
As I just asked that question, it typed it into my phone on Google or something. I never saw that before.
what?
I
You must
saw
have
the
had
question appear on my phone. I didn't press anything on my phone. The microphone picked it up somehow on my phone.
Okay, can you ask that a question again? Because you froze right in the middle of that, and I don't know if that's going to pop up on
Okay.
your video or the full video or whatnot. So try that again.
So the poll question of the week is: do you believe that 2025 New York City mayoral candidate Brad Lander getting arrested by ICE agents exactly 1 week prior to the Democratic primary is a publicity stunt?
That's probably the longest poll question we've ever had.
I don't
But
think so.
yeah,
Not as
but
long as
yeah,
the Brad
good.
said. Free Brad,
We'll
free
see.
Brad.
We'll see what people have to say about that.
I wonder who his cellmate is.
Well, he's out.
He's out now.
He's done his bid. But we
Yes.
we joke, but the fact that he was arrested at all, even if it was something that he is aiming to do when he went there, is a travesty of justice. Period.
His poll numbers were not too low, apparently, to be arrested.
So no, no.
Okay. Okay. Well, there you go. Moving on up in the world. So, I guess speaking of that, right? I did receive mailers that I wanted to show, and we can kind of react to them a little bit.
Hmm.
Right? These candidates trying to move on up with their mailers. Of course, some are putting ads on TV or on social media. Some
All
are
right.
now doing the direct mail. And so, believe it or not, all on the same day as early voting was set to begin. I guess they all timed it out this way. I got all these mailers. And so here we go. Mark Levine. Now, this is for the controller's race. Mark Levine,
Okay.
he sent a mailer. Let's see what his says. Stand up to Trump, build and preserve affordable homes, invest in safer sidewalks and streets for everyone. Sidewalks. Root out corruption. Okay. He's got endorsed by the UFT, Antonio Reynoso, the Brooklyn Borough President, and Donovan Richards, the Queensborough President. So
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Although this one, looking at this, it doesn't appear to be sent out by the campaign itself. So that's interesting. This is a PAC.
Okay.
On the bottom, it says paid for by United for NYC's Future. And then they've got to list their top 3 donors. NYSIT, which is the teachers union at the state level, American Federation of Teachers, United Federation of Teachers. Okay, so he was endorsed by the teachers union, and it looks
Okay.
like a PAC that's very heavily supported by these unions sent out this mailer on his behalf. So this didn't come from the campaign.
Okay.
Now, here's something of note, though. He's running against Justin Brannan and Kevin Parker, by the way. Shout out to Kevin Parker, who's not getting any attention, unfortunately. But they're running for controller. I didn't receive any mailers from any of the other candidates or on behalf of or in support of any of the other candidates in this race. And I think I mentioned before, I would see Justin Brandon's commercials on TV, not Mark Levine's. I'm starting to see Mark Levine commercials, and like I said, getting his mail. And so maybe this is the last minute push we're seeing from Levine. I think the polls had him up in the race. So we'll see where this one ends up. I personally am more partial to Brandon, believe it or not, in this one, but we'll see. From what we're looking at, maybe Levine has the edge, but that's why we have elections.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, here's one for Cuomo for mayor. This one is from the campaign, paid for by Cuomo for NYC. And this one is kind of like a fold out here. It's got 4 panels.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if you have any substance to this. It does say, as governor, Andrew Cuomo passed the strongest affordability agenda in decades. Okay, so on the one side, this is an interesting format, right? Because on the one side, it has what he did as governor. On the other side, it talks about what he wants to do as mayor. So that's kind of laid out in a slick way. Accomplishments as governor, raised the minimum wage to 15 an hour, the highest in the nation. I was a part of that. I worked in the Senate while that was happening. We were trying to get that through the budget. And I think I talked about it on the show in the past, that process of those long hours, right? Days without a break, trying to get that budget through. So in that budget, we did get that $15 minimum wage. Cut middle class taxes significantly. Cuomo expanded universal pre-K and affordable child care, launched major initiatives to increase the supply of affordable homes across the state. Okay, so he's focusing a lot on affordability there, right? On the other side, what does he want to do now? He's got a 5-point plan to make New York City affordable, build 500,000 new homes, affordable homes now, raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. Okay, so he wants to do even higher. I think it's time for that. Expand the fair fares program to offer free transit for low-income New Yorkers. Okay, so maybe piggybacking off of a Mamdani flavored policy there. Because remember, the free buses was something that Mamdani was calling for. He's talking about free transit for low-income New Yorkers. So maybe not for everybody, but at least have programs in place. That's interesting. Free universal 3K and after-school care. Real tax relief for working families. Okay. So his platform here is interesting. It's focused on affordability, which most New Yorkers agree is the top issue this year.
Sure.
But it does seem to have a mix here. And in fact, most of what you're seeing here would probably be described as kind of progressive, right? Raising the minimum wage, 20 an hour, free transit for low-income New Yorkers, free universal after school and 3K, real tax relief. Okay. I mean, I guess the tax cuts get somehow looked at as more of a conservative thing, even though he's talking about not doing it for billionaires and millionaires. He's talking about doing it for the working family. So I think that's more of a Democratic thing. But there's nothing on here that really paints him as the moderate or conservative Democrat that some say that he is. And I wonder if that's a deliberate choice on his part.
Right.
But what would you I mean, even it's funny, right? Because people throw around these labels. We looked at all these candidates' policies, even when we looked at the Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate's policy. Right. Okay, that looks kind of like a moderate Democrat almost. Like, what are these candidates proposing in their platforms that really come off as conservative? I'm not sure we're seeing much of any of that at all from any of the candidates, even the Republican.
Right. I mean, there were some things on that guy, the Republican, that and I forget specifics, but there were some things on there where it had definitely aligned with some of the talking points on the Republican side. But policy-wise, some of the things that he talked about, again, we noted many times that it kind of surprised us what he had in his platform.
Right. So
So
yeah,
some of the rhetoric that he used was a little bit
right. Yeah, and he was, he is the Republican candidate, and it's a Republican running in New York City, so you have to kind of factor all that in. It's not going to be a Republican running in Middle America, right? But it is interesting to me how you hear these buzz terms, and sometimes they're used to even try to scare you about a candidate, right? Like people on the far left, for example, will say, well, Cuomo is a conservative Democrat or a moderate Democrat, or whatever they try to use to demonize him. But what can they point to policy-wise that really backs that up? I think with Cuomo, it seems like the main attacks on him now are based on his record, right? The nursing home scandal when he was governor, the sexual harassment allegations, having to resign from office, things like that come up. But
Right.
policy wise, right, what are people really pointing at to try to paint him a certain way? I mean, he's not Mamdani, he's not a democratic socialist. He is not calling for government run grocery stores or free buses or some of these other things. So, yeah, comparatively speaking, you can see how he's more of a centrist, I guess, right? Because Mamdani is unabashedly on the far left. But what policy of Cuomo's that he's pushing in his platform are really moderate to conservative? I'm not really seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may
I
just
don't,
be more about the brand, right? Like
I
we
think
said,
it's the brand. I think
brand.
it's the name. It's the brand. It's,
Yeah.
you know, he's got
Like we
that
said with
background. He's got that larger than life type of figure. He's got those connections. And we saw like he hadn't even announced he was in the race and he was already winning.
right,
You know
right.
what I mean? It
His
was
poll
just
numbers not too
basically
low to be arrested.
say what?
I said his poll numbers were not too low to be arrested.
No, and I mean like it was basically up to him whether he wanted the position or not. Like I
Yeah.
think it's pretty much a lock that he's going to win.
I don't know. As of late, Mamdani is picking up steam. Although I gotta say, the one thing that Cuomo has going for him is if you look at the dynamics of this politically right now, Cuomo does have a lot of union support, right? And so it isn't just the establishment in terms of elected officials and county parties and right like those machines back.
Right,
It's also unions because sometimes when you see this kind of dynamic where a race gets polarized, sometimes you'll see the institutional support break down where one side has that, right? Like the
right,
county support and elected officials, and the other side has more unions, right? In this case, Cuomo seems to have both of those. What
right,
Mamdani has is more grassroots energy. I think they've knocked on a ton of doors, and they got that ground game, phone
right,
calls
right,
to volunteers, all that kind of
right,
stuff, right? But Cuomo does have the establishment. Cuomo has a lot of union support, and Cuomo also has a lot of money, not just his own campaign money, because you're capped campaign wise in New York City, but the outside money, the PAC supporting it, right? That's huge. And so
right. I
he
mean,
does
he's kind
have
of
those things in his favor to make him like the juggernaut in the race.
yeah, I mean, he's got that even though he's not in office now, he's got that kind of incumbent edge,
Right.
that type of, he's not the guy
Especially,
right now, but
it's,
he was,
yeah,
and he's got all those connections, he's got all that money link, he's got all that power link, and it's gonna come
especially
out.
with Eric Adams not being in the Democratic primary. It kind of makes
Right.
Cuomo de facto incumbent almost.
Sure, sure. Absolutely.
So I wanted to get in on this one. Michael Blake, shout out to him. He's still pulling his weight. By the way, what if Michael Blake would have gotten arrested? How would that have looked?
Um, you know what? I think it would from my exposure to him, it was I don't really know a lot about him, but from that, what was that debate that we watched?
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, he came off to me, he came off really, really well, and to me, it wouldn't have come off disingenuous to me from that appearance. And that's to be fair,
Yeah.
that's the only image of him that I've got. I don't know much about him outside of that. But then he was also a part of the Obama administration,
Right.
so
Here's something that's kind of funny on his mailer. It's
he
got a
wouldn't
picture of
be
him and Obama together, and it says, "We wouldn't be here without Michael Blake, Barack Obama."
right.
Now, this was probably a quote from when Obama ran for president in 2008, because Michael Blake was very involved in that campaign. And
Probably.
it is kind of funny because this is a mailer for New York City mayor here, and it kind of makes it sound like Obama is saying like New York City wouldn't be where it's at without Blake.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's
all right,
that gives me bad flashbacks.
bad flashbacks.
Yeah, it gives me bad flashbacks again from what was it, 2012?
Yeah.
The race in 2012
Oh
when
yeah, yeah.
Obama popped up and gave an endorsement of the opponent.
Right.
Like, dang it, Obama, mind your business.
But
Leave us alone over here.
in this case, it's not an endorsement. Michael Blake does list people who
Right.
are endorsing him. And look, I don't want to pick on him, but some of
Yeah, you
these
do.
look, this is the thing is this. You're running for mayor of New York City. It's not small potatoes. Like if he was running for city council or state
Right.
assembly, which he used to be in the assembly, this would be fine. But some of these endorsements on here reek of desperation a little bit, I think. I'll give you an example. He's got an endorsement, and I don't know who this person is, but this is how this person is described on the mailer, right? An endorsement from the co-op city president, comma, building 6, comma, section 1.
Yeah, that's a little bit too specific.
Dude, it's like you don't even have the whole building. Like you're saying, like I got that section of the building back. You're running for mayor of New York City.
Right. It sounds like you were struggling to find endorsements to fill up the space.
Right. Right. And look, maybe this is a great leader locally. Maybe it's a good person to have. I'm just saying the way it looks
And then
optically.
why not put his name?
No, they do have the name. They do have the name.
Oh,
And I don't want to be like dissing the person. I'm not saying that.
okay, okay, okay.
Like, the way it looks to me as someone who's not from Co-op City, right? I'm in Queens. I'm getting this. And I'm like,
Right.
building 6, section 1. Maybe even it could have been
Yes.
described better. Maybe it could have been like a co-op, a co-op city president or a co-op city leader or something like that. I don't know. But
Right.
to get that specific, I'm endorsed by the leader of Building 6, not even the whole Building 6, Section 1 of
Section
Building
one
6
of
of
Building
Co-op
Six.
City. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it almost is like saying like my neighbor down the hall endorses me or something like that.
Yeah, it's not a that's not a good it's not a good look, I don't think.
And now some of the other people on here, you look, maybe he's trying to actually bolster them. And that would be commendable because he's got endorsements from a city council candidate, not a city council member, a city council candidate. Okay.
Right.
He's got a Manhattan district leader, a Staten Island district leader, a district leader candidate, not even a district leader here, but a district
Right.
leader candidate, right? And a member of the Community Education Council. Again, not knocking these local positions. These are all great
Right.
roles to have. I'm just saying, for a candidate for mayor of New York City to be touting these as his endorsements, it doesn't exactly make that candidate look too strong, in my estimation.
Right. You know what it does kind of say to it seems to me, I don't know if this is the case, but it seems to me of like a, you know, you put me on your literature, I'll put you on my literature.
Right. Maybe even some petitioning going on, right? Like,
Right.
I'll put you on my mailer if you put my name on your petition when you get your signatures for your office or something.
Right, right. It sounds like that type of thing because those are very specific endorsements there.
It's just hard for me. Again, I'm looking at the optics of this, right? Like I looked at the optics of Brad Lander with that goofy superhero face or wannabe superhero thing, right? Being dragged through the halls, putting
Right.
aside the merit to what he did. I'm looking at this for Michael Blake. Rank Michael Blake #1 for mayor. Okay, that's what it says on here. Rank Michael Blake #1. You flip it over, endorsed by the head of Building 6, Section 1. That's the best you can do? Why would I rank you #1 for mayor? I don't know.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
inspire strength.
You
And
couldn't get the whole building, son?
that's
What?
what I'm saying. You could even get like the whole building. You have to get the section of the building. So the section 2, 3, and 4 hate you? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it is an odd endorsement declaration to be honest.
It doesn't have winning energy. And I think
Right.
you should try to project that. And I think you're onto something here. Maybe some deals were made with these
Right.
people, right? But even the Community Education Council, they don't have to petition to get on the ballot for that. That's a very local position that you get put on by the borough president or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's so I don't know why that would be on here. Maybe he's trying to support these people. Maybe there was a volunteer for the campaign. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows, right? But
Right.
it's just you would think they would do more to try to
Right.
project a winning message or some kind of confidence. Because
Right.
unfortunately, what happens in politics, and I'm just saying, based on experience observing races and being involved in things, it isn't only a matter of people wanting to vote for the candidates that they agree with. Oftentimes, they want to vote for someone that they think is going to win or has a shot to win. People sometimes
Right.
feel like they're throwing away a vote if it's for someone who's not going to win, right? And
Right. Sure.
maybe it's a matter of are you more pragmatic with your voting, right, versus ideological or whatever. But from a political strategy or political science perspective, I think if you want to increase your vote tallies here, you should try to project more strength.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It does seem kind of, yeah, it does seem a little strange. Yeah.
Now, look, I want to shout out all these candidates. Running for office is not easy, and we
No,
criticize, we clown, we joke, free breath. We'll have the shirts next week. But in all seriousness, I do commend everyone for putting themselves out there. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a huge sacrifice. And
sure.
many of these candidates have personally worked with me or shown up to my events, helped things I was doing, including Michael Blake. You can go on my YouTube channel, the Mike Scala YouTube page, and see we did a press conference when we were filing a lawsuit to try to help the residents of Dayton Beach Park. Michael Blake, who was then an assembly member, showed up to Rockaway, stood with us at that press conference. Like I said, you can see it on my YouTube page right now. To his credit, he went out there to do that. Now, there are other candidates as well, right? Even Curtis Sliwa, we've done events with locally. You know what I mean? Like people have come out to support what we were doing, either with civics or for issues like the Queen's Link. Mamdani, I might put on my page. It was on my stories a while back when we did a press conference outside City Hall, right, to call attention to the Queen's Link issue, try to get the mayor's attention. Assemblymember Mamdani was there yelling Queen's Link now, being very, very, very aggressive about it, but in a good way, right? Like really saying, like, we're not playing around, we need this. And so
Right.
debate the politics, we can say we don't like the policies, too ideological, whatever, whatever floats your boat. But a lot of these candidates have actually come out and not just talk the talk, but walk the walk and backed us when we were asking them for support, right? And so, I do give them all props for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
All right.
uh,
Well, interesting stuff here.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Want
so
to
what's the
get
bottom line? Oh,
oh
good.
well, this is kind of like a light thing. I just as I had my flyers out there, my mailers, I was on the boardwalk in Rockaway and I got these.
What's that?
You know anything about Pokemon cards?
Um, just that they're trading cards. People use them for games and stuff too. They
I
have
can't imagine.
tournaments.
Well, I
They
guess
have
I guess you can
money.
look these up because they got numbers on here and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there was a kid who was trying to get money. He said it was for pizza. You know, I don't know. I believed him. I gave him a couple bucks, and some other people were giving him some money. He said he wanted to buy a pizza at the concession stand over there with his friend, pretty young kid. So I gave him some money, and he gave me these cards. I was like, no, I don't want the cards. But he insisted that I take the cards. He's like, you deserve it, man. And he gave me the cards, and they're gold cards. I'm assuming they're probably not worth much of
I don't
anything.
know. What's the card name and number? Pick
Uh,
one.
Charizard and Pikachu. The number for the Charizard is 508. No, that's the hit points. So I don't know. Where would I find the number?
I don't know.
I guess this is like for a game, some kind of game, because it's got the hit
Yeah, yeah. They do it with get.
points. 190 for the Pikachu, 508 for the Charizard.
Oh,
Oh wait,
Charizard's a
I don't even know
boss.
what these numbers mean. I guess so.
There's no
Oh, here,
number on the card.
yeah, I'm looking for that. I thought that the hit points was a number. It's just the hit points, I guess. I guess it's not a unique identifying number. It looks
Uh,
like they're I don't know. I actually don't. One says V Evolution and one says Basic. They might both be from the same company though. It looks like it might be a game, like a
does it
Pokemon.
say a level? Does it say a level
Yeah,
number on there?
yeah. The Charizard is level 91.
Okay, so that one, it looks like it's $3.50 or one sold recently for $5, it looks
Okay.
like.
But is that in mint condition or because these are kind of a little beat up? I don't know. I'm not a grader, so I'm looking, but they're not in like pristine shape.
Yeah, it looks like there's a couple of different ones.
Okay.
One of them sold for $20.
Wow.
One sold for 17. I guess there is a serial number somewhere on there.
Yeah.
And you said the Pikachu.
The Pikachu, I don't see a level number. It just says 190 HP. I see the number 200 though on the right side. I don't know if that's anything.
Um, it depends. And it's a gold thing.
Yeah, they're both
Yeah, there's a
gold.
couple of ranges here. I'm seeing from 189 or a dollar all the way up to $25 depending.
Wow.
So
Well,
yeah, I mean, you could have made out, man. You could have like robbed that kid.
maybe. Listen, I said I didn't want the cars. I just give him a couple bucks cash, and he insisted. He's like, "You deserve it, man," and he gave it to me. All right, I know nothing about this, but I appreciate it.
True, true, true.
So, all right, bottom line, Tom. What is the bottom line? I think we were kind of hinting at one a few minutes ago, talking about we clown sometimes, we criticize, and you know what? When you put yourself out there, not just to run for office, but as a public figure of any kind, right? When you step into the spotlight, you are signing up for criticism. You're signing up sometimes for people to even spin things to suit their own agenda, even if it isn't 100% accurate or
Judgment.
yeah, right. People inserting their own opinions, editorializing, doing things that seem like, are being twisted out of context, all that kind of stuff. But this is unfortunately part of the territory as a public figure. You sign up for it. You're basically saying, kind of like what Brad Lander did, you're basically saying, maybe not physically, but metaphorically, right? Arrest me, attack me, accost me. You're offering yourself to be critiqued on some
Right.
level, and so I think it is commendable for anyone to do that, knowing people will be slinging mud, people will be coming for your throat, right? People will be attacking, clowning, making jokes, doing all that kind of stuff, coming at you. But hopefully, your heart is in the right place, and you're doing it to serve a greater purpose, something greater than yourself, right? It's a sacrifice that you're making. I think a lot of people don't look at it that way, but it really is, right?
Right.
For office, but not just running for office, stepping into the public spotlight. I think people glamorize it a lot and they look at it like, oh, yeah, they're doing it for their own ego. Well, maybe, no, that could be part of it for some people. But I think what's left out of the conversation a lot is that it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, right? So if people are doing it for their ego, you have to keep in mind it's a sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice to do something like that, right? And so it isn't like you step into that spotlight and everyone just throws flowers on you. No, you're getting tomatoes thrown at you, right? You're getting
Sure.
smoke. And so
Absolutely.
let's give people credit where it's due for being willing to do that.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. And more people should step in if they have the willingness and the time and the ability.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, 'cause we definitely
and
need
the
that.
skin, the thick skin, right?
And the thick skin, yes. And ice can eat a eat a eat a eat a glizzy.
Mm. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us. Where can people find us, Jay?
They can find us on the internet at Nuance Show. That's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and wherever podcasts are available. So subscribe and comment. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts and whatnot, positive and negative.
That's it. Neutral and everything in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not wearing a blue shirt this time, so maybe you'll get a different one.
Right, right. And comment, let us know if your poll numbers are high enough to be arrested. All right, yo,
All
as
right.
always, we've got work to do. We'll catch you next time.